Yeah, well, that's it. There's going to be a strict, again, they're going to continue to push for strict adherence to the subcontractor rules only because they want to know who your subcontractors are. A lot of it's because of the VAT tax, I believe. The more you know about who you're paying, the more you can determine what that VAT tax will bring in.
What do you think of the Tea Party group?
It's a good question. I believe I am the Tea Party. And when I say that, I mean jokingly, you know, people look at me and say, wait, where'd that come from? Well, the truth of it is, why am I running? I'm running because I'm mad. I'm running because I'm upset with the government. I'm running because I think we've been taxed enough already. I'm running for all the reasons that the Tea Party movement believes in. And by the way, our polling shows that 82% of the people believe in the Tea Party movement. So I'm a firm believer. Now, what I do think is the Tea Party movement today in this district is segregated. And when you talk about Tea Parties in the 16th district, you might think, oh, there's one Tea Party. No, there are like 9 different groups, maybe 8. I don't remember all of them. But you've got Medina Patriots, Medina Tea Party, Wadsworth Tea Party, Wooster 912, Stark 912, Stark Tea Party. You start to name all these names off, and you wonder, you got Ashland Tea Party. Why are there so many different Tea Parties? Because you would think if you're going to be a Tea Party group, you would all want to get together under the same format and come up with the same plan. That's the weakness of the Tea Party, not the strength of the Tea Party. The strength of the Tea Party is all Tea Party people, including myself, believe in too much government, too much taxes, all those things. The weakness is they separate because they all have their own conditions. They want certain things to happen. Now, I was fortunate enough to stand in front and address every Tea Party group in this district since I got in this election. I also did one other thing. One Friday night, just like this, I invited all the Tea Party leaders to my office, and we spent 3 hours. And that was an interesting night, because when I brought them there, it was early on. Most of them didn't like me. You know why? They thought I was the establishment guy. And that's the other problem I have with Tea Party people. Why am I the establishment guy? Well, because the Ohio Republican Party endorsed you. Well, and at that time, the Ohio Republican Party had endorsed me. They just thought I was the established person. What I think I was able to express that night, and I know this because many of the Tea Party leaders contacted me afterwards, there is a process to getting elected. The process to getting elected is just not jumping in and saying, I'm here, vote for me. The process is that you've got to start and get support from all these groups. Ohio Republican Party, National Republican Party, Chairman of the Republican Party. You've got to get the momentum and the endorsement. Once some of the Tea Party leaders and the Patriot leaders saw that, one of them wrote a blog. You're welcome to look at it. It's under Johnny Constitution. Because this guy was absolutely unhappy with Jim Renacci, but if you read his blog now, he says, I would do exactly what Jim Renacci did. And I thought after seeing that, he finally got it. He finally realized, because he says in that blog, there is a process. Jim Renacci followed the process. And that's pretty important. So I believe they're good. I think they got to come together. They got to come together. They got to unify. And they got to stand for one thing. And the one thing they can't do, which will just destruct everything, because John Bocero will be back. If they sit there, and there are some of them out there that say, I'm not going to vote for Jim Renacci because he's the chosen one. I'm not going to vote for Jim Renacci because he's been endorsed by a high Republican Party. That's the weakness in the Tea Party in my interpretation. Because the Tea Party, and some of them do this, and Medina Patriots does this very well. They sit there and they explain all the issues and they say, these are all the candidates. You decide. That's what we need with the Tea Parties. They can be very informative, but don't just use the, you know, when I see these Tea Party groups that say, I'm not voting for Renacci because he's endorsed. Well, look at some of the blogs. That's the difference. The Tea Parties can be a great asset for change, but they got to come together with one goal, removing John Bocero. Well, here's my thoughts on 4 taxes, and death tax is one of them. I believe capital gains are high enough and they shouldn't be raised too late because they're going to be raised under the health care bill. I believe the 2001 and 2003 tax cuts that are going to expire next year need to be continued because they save households $1,200 per year. Middle-class Americans save $1,200 a year. I believe that the alternative minimum tax needs to be buried and gone. And I believe the death tax needs to be eliminated because you already pay enough taxes your whole life, saving up for retirement and an asset that you can pass on to your children. And after you've paid taxes on that whole your life, the government taxes you again. And by the way, it's going to be reinstated. John Bocherry just voted for it. It's 45% death tax was just voted on by John Bocherry, I think, a month and a half ago. And as far as the IRS, I believe that the IRS, I would love to see a fair tax. I believe it's a positive future. I'm a CPA. I've done plenty of tax returns. I can tell you 90% of the IRS agents do not understand a complicated tax return. I will also tell you that probably 90% of the accountants doing the tax returns don't understand a complicated tax return. The issue to it is we use the tax system to penalize and reward instead of collecting dollars to service the federal government whose only job is to protect our freedoms per the Constitution. So answer is I'd love to see a fair tax, but the problem is implementation. Very difficult to implement. I am working with some groups to continue to learn more about how to implement it.
In your opinion, what would you say the odds are that the Tea Parties could unite sufficiently to field a national candidate in 2012?
I think the Tea Parties are the greatest asset or the greatest detriment to the Republican Party. I do not believe the Tea Parties will be able to field a candidate in the next 2, 4, 6, 8 years that will be able to go up against the machine. Here's what I said to the Tea Party people, and it's the best way of explaining it. If you were in your house, and you've been in this house for 150 years as a Republican Party, and all of a sudden the Tea Party starts to storm the house to take it over, are you going to stand back and say, take it? Or are you going to defend? And that's the problem. So what we really need to do is work together. The Tea Party could be the greatest asset for the Republican Party. It also could be the greatest asset for the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party knows that if they can fuel up the Tea Party enough to take away the votes for the Republican Party, the Democratic Party will be in power for a long time. Right, and that's why we really do need the Tea Party people to understand they can help the Republican Party, but they can't dismantle it because it'll just be an asset to the Democratic Party.